Escape from Freedom. Erich Fromm. Erich Fromm, 1900 to 1980, was a German-born social psychologist and philosopher who deeply explored the relationship between human psychology and social structures. Fromm sees freedom as more than just liberation from external oppression. He argues that even if freedom is given, we are not necessarily truly free. On the contrary, he claims that humans have a tendency to escape from freedom in various ways, because they cannot handle it. Before modernity, religion, tradition, and authoritarian systems strongly controlled individuals. People followed assigned roles without having to worry about who they were. However, as modern society emerged, we began to experience liberation as individuals. We no longer had to follow the commands of kings or churches and could make our own choices. Yet the problem is that while we gained the freedom to choose, we also gained extreme anxiety. Who am I? Is what I chose the right decision? What is the meaning of my life? In the face of these questions, freedom can instead make us anxious. Escape from Freedom is one of Erich Fromm's major works, which raises the question, why do humans desire freedom while simultaneously fearing it? It explains how people voluntarily give up their freedom to escape from the anxiety that freedom brings. Through this, Fromm historically analyzes how individual psychological anxiety has led to totalitarian thought. Fromm states that when humans struggle to bear freedom, they tend to seek authoritarian leaders or blindly follow established rules to relieve the burden of responsibility and anxiety caused by excessive freedom. Fromm claims that these phenomena and tendencies are not just things of the past. Even in modern times, the anxiety-stricken human continues to have the motivation to become an automaton. And with the expanded reach of information technology and the abundance of choices, the possibility of this happening has only increased. He states that this significant difficulty we face arises from the fact that the development of human intellectual capabilities has far outpaced emotional development. He points out that while the human brain lives in the modern age, most people's hearts still remain in the Stone Age. He also sees most people are not yet mature enough to be independent, rational, and objective, to endure the fact that they are alone and that no external power exists to give their lives meaning. They inevitably seek myths and idols. How can humanity save itself from the crisis of self-destruction caused by the gap between intellectual technological advancement and emotional regression? Fromm sees the solution as strengthening awareness of the most fundamental realities. He states that awareness of the self and the reality in which we live prevents us from making irreversible mistakes and helps us maintain our identity. Let's take an example. Today we witness endless power struggles in politics through the media. Watching politicians slander one another, engage in accusations, and fight relentlessly for dominance, we as individuals feel disillusioned and want to disengage from politics entirely. At some point, politics and power struggles begin to feel distant, as if they have nothing to do with our personal lives. Watching the news feels overwhelming, making us want to avoid it. However, this is precisely when we need to pay attention. A healthy social environment is a fundamental prerequisite for our true freedom. Rather than dismissing politics as mere power struggles, we must recognize that it is the foundation for preserving freedom and human dignity. If we fail to remain vigilant about how our freedoms and rights are being maintained, the values we must protect may quietly disappear. Today, through Erich Fromm's Escape from Freedom, we will explore the history of human struggle for freedom, the anxiety that arose in the process, how that anxiety led people to depend on power and authority, what true freedom is, and what we must do to achieve it. What is freedom? We often speak of freedom. We believe we can speak freely, act freely, and choose freely. But have we ever deeply considered what freedom truly means? Fromm divides freedom into two types. The first is negative freedom, freedom from. The second is positive freedom, freedom to. Negative freedom means freedom from something. For example, when a country gains independence, we say it has achieved freedom. Or when we escape from the control of oppressive parents, we feel free. However, this freedom is merely liberation from past constraints. It does not address what comes next in life. On the other hand, positive freedom is the freedom to do something. That is, it is not just about breaking free from oppression, but about having the ability to shape one's own life and assign it meaning. We usually think of negative freedom as the only form of freedom. However, freedom is not just about liberation, but also about what we choose to do with it and how we live. The paradox of freedom in modern history. Before modernity, people were not free. Let's think of the medieval era. People lived under the authority of kings, nobles, the church, and their communities. They did not have the freedom to choose their own lives, but in return, they had a strong sense of belonging and stability. People were born into fixed roles, whether as serfs, knights, or clergy. These roles were seen as divinely ordained, so individuals did not have to question them. In Christian societies, religion provided life's purpose and meaning. People did not have to ask existential questions like, why was I born? The Bible and the church already provided the answers. Villages and families protected individuals, ensuring they had a place within the community. This meant there was little reason for people to feel personal isolation or anxiety. In other words, people were not free, but they were also free from the burden of choice. Life was simple and stable. However, from the 15th century onward, the world underwent drastic transformations. The Renaissance, the Reformation, the Industrial Revolution, and the Enlightenment began to free individuals from traditional orders. As the power of monarchs and aristocrats declined, people started to be recognized as equals. The Protestant Reformation weakened religious authority. Capitalism and industrialization allowed people to pursue occupations not determined by birth. Enlightenment thinkers championed reason and autonomy, promoting self-determined lives. These changes granted humanity more freedom. People were no longer bound by the paths set by kings or churches. But this also meant that individuals had to determine their own life direction. The medieval serf was never free, yet he clearly understood his role and position, and it was never questioned. By contrast, modern individuals gained freedom, but many became unsure of how to use it. They had to construct their own identity and constantly question whether they were making the right choices. Thus, freedom liberated humanity, but it also brought isolation and anxiety. The choices of individuals who have become free but seek to escape isolation and anxiety. Since we have gained freedom, shouldn't we just accept it joyfully? But the problem is, many people find it difficult to bear freedom. People feel anxious in the face of new choices. Am I making the right choice? Is this the right way to live? I don't know who I am or how I should live. These questions began to torment people endlessly. Those who found this anxiety unbearable started looking for ways to escape from freedom. Fromm argues that when humans fear freedom, they escape through authoritarianism, destructiveness, mechanical conformity, the automaton personality, instrumental rationality, and consumerism. People who choose authoritarianism. What do people who fear freedom do? They seek a strong authority figure and entrust their lives to them. Fromm calls this authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is the most fundamental way to escape from freedom. People who cannot endure the anxiety of freedom wish for someone else to make decisions for them. Fromm divides authoritarianism into two types. Sadistic authoritarianism, the tendency to dominate and control others. This includes dictators, tyrants, and oppressive leaders. Gaining strong power makes them feel less anxious when faced with freedom. Masochistic authoritarianism, the opposite of the first type. This involves finding comfort in submitting to a strong authority figure. Instead of making their own choices, they prefer to depend on someone else. An example would be people who blindly follow a charismatic leader. Historically, one example of masochistic authoritarianism is the German citizens who fervently supported Hitler during the rise of Nazism. Another example is people who blindly follow authoritarian religious or political leaders. In modern times, this can be seen in groups or masses that offer blind loyalty to charismatic power figures. Fromm warns that we must be cautious of this authoritarian tendency. Because the moment we rely on authoritarianism, we are no longer able to choose our own lives. People who choose destructiveness. What do people do when they find the anxiety of freedom unbearable? Sometimes they escape by destroying themselves or others. People who cannot handle the responsibility and anxiety that freedom brings tend to either internalize their anxiety, self-destruction, or project it outward, destruction of others. Self-destruction refers to behaviors that harm oneself, such as addiction, self-harm, self-deprecation, and self-destructive thoughts. These actions emerge from extreme helplessness. Destruction of others manifests as hatred, violence, war, and hate crimes, often taking the form of attacking specific groups in social or political conflicts. Examples include hateful online comments, school bullying, and politically or socially motivated aggression. Fromm states, those who fear freedom often seek stability by destroying it. People who rely on mechanical conformity. Are we really thinking and choosing for ourselves? Or are we merely acting freely within the framework society has set for us? Mechanical conformity is the most common way to escape from the anxiety of freedom. People believe they are safe as long as they conform to the given framework. However, this is not true freedom. Mechanical conformity is influenced by mass culture and the media. It manifests as blindly following trends and losing individuality, or as feeling comfort in acting like others on social media. In political and social contexts, mechanical conformity means uncritically following a particular ideology or group, being easily manipulated by mass psychology. Examples include consumerism driven by corporate advertising and the culture of seeking validation through social media likes. Fromm argues that mechanical conformity is the most dangerous form of escape from freedom because people falsely believe they are free. People who have become automatons. In modern society, people are behaving more and more like machines. At work, in school, and even in daily life, we move according to predetermined patterns, devoid of emotion. What does it mean to be an automaton? An automaton is a person who acts according to a fixed framework, without independent thought. Someone who prioritizes efficiency in the corporate world and whose emotions are gradually eliminated. Examples include employees who suppress their emotions and work mechanically in a corporate environment, students who passively absorb education without questioning it. This kind of life may appear free on the surface, but in reality it is no different from being a machine. Fromm also points out that people escape anxiety by relying on instrumental rationality, a mindset where human value is measured solely by productivity and economic efficiency. Additionally, he argues that many people escape into consumerism, mistaking forced choices for free choices. We believe we are freely consuming, but in reality, we may be controlled through consumption. How to find true freedom. So how can we stop escaping from freedom and instead seek true freedom? 1. Spontaneity and self-realization. Fromm states that true freedom is not simply liberation from external oppression, but the process of fully realizing oneself. Fromm argues that freedom is not just about making choices, but is discovered through the process of creating one's life. Let's reflect on a passage from his book. When we are in school, we want good grades. When we become adults, we want a successful career, more money, privileges, a better car, and the ability to travel the world. But in the midst of all this striving, if we pause to think, a question may arise. If I earn more money, buy this car, and complete this journey, what comes next? Right now, I expect these goals to make me happy, but will that happiness disappear the moment I reach them? This question, once raised, is terrifying, because it forces us to ask the very foundation of all human activity: do I truly know what I want? People tend to quickly push these unsettling thoughts aside. They feel as if they were only tired or depressed when they had such doubts, so they continue to chase what they believe are their goals. Yet the moment of questioning is itself a sign that they are beginning to glimpse the truth. Recognizing what one truly wants is not as easy as most people think. It is one of the most difficult problems that everyone must solve. It is especially difficult to discern whether our desires, thoughts, and emotions are truly our own, or whether they have been implanted in us by external forces. This difficulty is closely related to the problem of authority and freedom. Fromm claims that true positive freedom exists when an individual remains independent while staying connected to the world, whether through relationships, nature, or the self. He emphasizes that self-realization is not just an intellectual process, but a holistic one that integrates emotions and reason. He calls for the importance of spontaneity in self-expression. Artists and children, for example, exhibit spontaneity naturally. We all have moments of spontaneity, when we perceive a landscape in a new way, when we realize a truth through our own thinking, when we experience an indescribable sensory pleasure, when a deep love for another person arises. In those moments, we understand what it means to act spontaneously. Second, solidarity in society. While many people equate independence with freedom, Fromm states that true freedom is found not in complete individual isolation, but in healthy relationships. By realizing ourselves spontaneously, we reconnect with the world, with humanity, with nature, and with ourselves. Fromm argues that love represents this spontaneity. Here, love means the spontaneous affirmation of another person, not by losing oneself, but by preserving one's individuality while connecting with others. 3. The foundation for true freedom, a healthy society. Fromm emphasizes that pursuing positive freedom is as important as ensuring a healthy society that guarantees such freedom. One of the key conditions for a healthy society, according to Fromm, is critical thinking. Humans often have a tendency to blindly follow authority, which is why critical thinking is crucial. Critical thinking involves the ability to analyze information rather than accepting it as truth, a questioning attitude toward authoritative claims, the habit of logically comparing diverse perspectives. Fromm argues that a healthy society is not merely one where laws and institutions are well organized, but one that provides a democratic environment where individuals can fully realize their potential. It is a society that encourages personal growth and challenges. A healthy society also promotes social solidarity and respect for diversity. It fosters an open culture where critical thinking is encouraged, where diverse opinions coexist, and where freedom exists as a space for mutual solidarity. Conclusion: can we truly be free? Through Fromm's philosophy, we have learned that while we desire freedom, at the same time, it is not easy to bear. In the past, external authorities defined us and provided us with stability. But in modern society, we have become beings who must make choices for ourselves. However, with the freedom to choose comes anxiety, leading us to rely on authority, conform to others, or live mechanically like automatons. Yet the true freedom that Fromm speaks of is not merely freedom from oppression, negative freedom. It is the freedom to realize oneself and create meaning, positive freedom. We must grow through freedom and actively construct the meaning of our lives. To achieve this, we need spontaneity, creativity, and social solidarity. True freedom is not a lonely battle. Rather, it becomes stronger within relationships and in a healthy society. We must remain vigilant against blindly following authority and constantly reflect on whether our choices are genuinely leading to self-realization. Fromm states that only when we face freedom without escaping from it can we truly live as human beings. We are not only liberated from external oppression, but we must also create meaning for ourselves and live the lives we truly desire. Only then can we be free. So now let us ask ourselves, am I truly free? I hope today's video has provided a small but meaningful reflection for your life. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.